my name is Dan Brown, and this is Let's Hike the Blue Trail at Sleeping Giant. And I'm just going to do the first third of the Blue Trail because it's kind of a long trail, and it actually extends beyond the limits of the park. But I'm just going to do the first third at the main entrance. The first third where that kind of goes over the head area of the giant. Like as I've said before in some of these episodes, Sleeping Giant is a series of hills that's shaped like a giant that's lying on his back, and the Blue Trail kind of goes up over the head, then over the chest, and then down to the feet. And I'm just going to do kind of like the head area. And it's been raining pretty much all night, and the rivers are very swollen right now. So should get some interesting video. So let's begin again. The first maybe 20 feet of the trail is actually completely covered in a little creek, but I guess it ends right about there. Usually the river here doesn't even reach the it doesn't really even go up to these trees over here. It's usually there's a little bit of sand in between the water, but now as you can see it's all the way up here because of all the rain. There's a dam down there. It's not part of the Blue Trail, but I'm gonna go over there and get some shots of it just because of the unusual conditions. Looks like the water is just pouring right over the top of the dam. Usually that dam is concrete and it sticks up like maybe about 5 or 6 feet above the water level, but now the water is just spilling right up above, right over the top of it. There's the dam. Alright, so that concludes our little detour to the Violet Trail to look at the swollen river. And from this point on, the rest of the trail is going to be the blue trail, unless I see something else that is noteworthy. So now I'm at what is called the elbow. Basically the giant is said to be lying on its back like this, and I am on the right elbow right now. So there's kind of a nice view here. Sometimes I skip over this place because the walk up to the elbow, as I just showed, is very steep, and sometimes it's just a pain in the butt, but sometimes when I'm feeling out of shape I just go up the elbow and then I come down the red trail and then I go up again the elbow just to give my heart a little bit of a workout. But yeah, it's actually raining and the wind is blowing pretty cold, so I'm going to try to move this along because I'm not really dressed very appropriately. I wasn't sure if I was going to hike today, but I saw how swollen the rivers were and I just decided to go. But I'm wearing like a cotton jacket, which you're never supposed to wear cotton when you're hiking, especially when it's cold and rainy, because the cotton stays wet and it sucks all the warmth out of your body. So I tend to do that a lot, but I'm pretty close to civilization, so I'm probably not in too much danger. But anyway, let me show you what the view is like from here. This is the view from the elbow. That's Whitney Avenue down there, and I'm kind of pointing northwest, and this is where I'm going right up here. This is the head of the giant, and it's really windy and foggy and slippery, so hopefully I can do this quickly and get out of the wind. That's the elbow. It's very slippery. a place I usually stop at. It's kind of a nice place to sit, and there's a nice view here. So generally when I come up the Blue Trail, I sit here for a couple minutes and look over the edge. This used to be a quarry. This is the back of the giant's skull. And they used to dig rocks out of the mountainside. And down there are the ruins of some kind of, I guess some kind of rock processing plant. But down in those rocks I was climbing. Like sometimes people climb way up there and write graffiti on the rocks way up there. And I don't do that, but one time I was climbing in the rubble there, and I found a couple of different pocket knives throughout the course of my life, but I found one kind of toward the top of the rubble there. I forgot to bring it, but it was just a little tiny Swiss Army knife. It's kind of a cool looking tree. Been slowly eroding out of the hillside. This is kind of another place that I like to sit when I go hiking. Kind of a nice view. Another shot of the quarry down below. And then you can see the hotels and condos in the background over Whitney Avenue. Still quite a ways to go. It's a nice little stream trickling down the rocks. Taking a break here, catch my breath out of the wind and rain. That's where I'm going. kind of feel like I'm getting old. But I used to come here with my father when I was younger, and my brother and my friend Brian, who's been in this series before, used to just run up this cliff, and but now I need to stop more. And I feel like every time I come up here with Brian, we sit at their top and rest, and like, remember when we used to run up here, up this cliff? And my father would be lagging behind, and he'd be like, "Slow down, you boys!" And we'd have to wait at the top for him. And there's the elbow down there, down by Whitney Avenue. This is my tree. I usually sit up here when I reach the top, but it's all slippery now, so I'm all covered in mud and I'm all wet. But this tree just makes the perfect chair. Alright. Let's hope I don't kill myself getting out of here. So we've pretty much reached the top. There's some cliffs a bit further down that I'll show you. But Brian and I sometimes just sit up here and just talk about things when we get to this point. It's kind of a nice bald spot, nice little clearing to sit at, but yeah, it's this real scenic part is further down. Okay, I'm on what is known as the Giant's Chin. It's a cliff pretty much. There's a big valley in between. That's the Tower Trail down there. That's the easiest trail you can take here on the Sleeping Giant. I'm on the hardest right now, I think. Well, I'm pretty sure it's the hardest. Over here to the right is Quinnipiac University. A lot of Quinnipiac students seem to come here. But when I was, I did an episode, the first episode of the series that I did, Let's Hike the White Trail, I was with Brian and we walked kind of up the hill here, and we ended up right over there on this bald spot right here. That's, this whole thing is the chest. I'm standing on the chin and I'm looking down at the Giant's chest, and at one point me and Brian stopped here, and we were talking about the cairns that were up there, and then there was a tree that we used as a little fort when we were kids, and we were looking down that way at Quinnipiac College. And every time I come up to the Blue Trail, I'd say the Blue Trail is my favorite trail, but when I come up here, I often just come up and sit on the rocks, and like there's this spot right here, and there's like this outcropping of rock, and I lay here and I put my head like right there, and it makes like the perfect pillow. I'm not going to do that now because the rocks are all wet and slimy, but when it's sunny up here and the sun is beating down on these rocks, it makes a perfect place to take a nap. One story I have about the Chin from when I was a kid is that, you know, we'd come up here all all every time of year, winter, spring, summer, fall, and my brother would just sit on the edge and he'd make little snowmen, and he'd have a master snowman, what was it? Snowman Masterpiece Theater, and he'd make the snowmen, and they'd stand on this rock here, and then they'd put on a play, and then the snowmen would like interact with each other and like have marital conflicts, and at the end of the play all of the snowmen would commit suicide by jumping off of the cliff. So they'd like the snowmen would just be arguing about like some love affair gone wrong, and then and they'd all just go splat on the rocks, and I always thought that was hilarious. Oh, and there's a little bird. I don't know if you can see that, but sometimes you sit up here and hawks and crows just fight. Like they just screech and just fight and chase each other around, and I don't know if the hawks are trying to invade like the crow's nests and eat their babies or vice versa, but a lot of the time they're just bickering and fighting. Another thing that we did when we were kids, we'd sit up here, and all the people, there would be all these people on a nice day walking on the tower trail, and we'd go, "Hello down there, this is God speaking," and we would just give people advice on how their lives were going awry, and we were just like guiding them on the straight and narrow path to salvation. So yeah, we were a bunch of hooligans, I guess. Another thing we do when we came up here. Oh, the wind's really blowing my camera. Another thing we do, we just sit up here and eat lunch, and we'd always have like, sometimes my dad would just buy a bunch of snacks like Fig Newtons and Snapples, and sometimes we'd just get a canteen. And I remember when we first started coming out here, like we would drink out of the same canteen, and I was like, at first I was a little uncomfortable with that, but after a while I was like, well, this is what men do. So, I don't know. I always thought that was kind of funny. The film I'm taking really doesn't do the view justice, I find. So hopefully this will give people inspiration to come up here themselves if they haven't already been up here already. Here's another tree that we used to climb in when we were kids. Used to be another G.I. Joe base when we'd have our dead stick guns, and we'd be running around screaming, "Yo, Joe!" And we'd climb around in this tree, and I forget what the name of this base was. Maybe it was like the Mobile Command Center or something. Who knows? This G.I. Joe headquarters, maybe. There's another view of Quinnipiac. That's the cliff I was standing on before, where my brother used to do snowman theater. There are a couple of different cliffs you can stand on. There's this one. This is actually where I've seen a lot of kids sitting and smoking pot. And then there's another one over here, down that way. Rain stopped for a while, but it's picking up a little bit. It's really windy now. I've actually been able to stay quite warm and dry just by moving and climbing and stuff, but even still, you shouldn't wear cotton. One time I was up here on the chin, and sometimes I try to catch snakes, and this was in the summertime, and I saw this big snake it was a garter snake actually, and it was sitting in the leaves, and it saw me, and I tried to make a go for it, and tried to catch it, but it slithered underneath the leaves, and I lost sight of it, but I stopped and I was listening, and I could hear it slithering underneath the leaves, because I guess underneath the leaves there were rocks, and it couldn't escape into the ground, so it was slithering under the leaves, and I would listen, and I could tell where it was, and I would pay attention, and every once in a while I would try to grab it underneath the leaves, but it would escape again, and it was like this cat and mouse game of me listening to where the snake was, and him escaping, but still not being able to be quiet enough to get away. And eventually he got away, but it was kind of cool. Like, it was almost like a neat game where I had to use other senses other than vision. And I always thought that was kind of cool, so I just thought I'd share it. It's a little black-capped chickadee. I don't know if you can see him. One time when I was in college, I was coming down here and there was snow all over the place and ice. And I do that once in a while. I come here in the snow, but this one time it was really icy and I slipped and I fell, and I slid like 10 feet and I landed and my hip just kind of crashed into this. My hip just kind of crashed into this rock, and I was lying there on my side, and I couldn't get up for a couple minutes, and I was lying there and I was just making noises like for like a good 5 minutes. But then I finally was able to just kind of stand up and crawl down the rest of the way. But that was probably the worst slip I've had here. I'm generally pretty good at selecting good footholds, but I've seen other people climb down here in the ice and snow with dogs, and it's kind of interesting seeing dogs climb this icy slope. Like, sometimes it seems like they're nervous and they're looking around and not sure where to go. But usually they I don't know, they just I guess having 4 legs helps a lot, because they generally make it down. Like, maybe they'll be nervous for a minute, but they seem to get down all right. I've seen my friend have to carry his dog a couple of times over rocky places, but usually they seem to manage pretty well on this trail. trail is just a muddy little stream. And that's the tower trail. That's how I'm gonna end this episode. I'm gonna walk down that trail. This episode, I have the most stories probably for the head portion of the giant, so I'm gonna end it pretty quickly as soon as I get to the tower trail. But the next episode will be the chest, and maybe I'll have a third episode doing the legs. But I don't really spend a lot of time down there, so I might not have a lot to say, and I might just include that one in the chest episode. But I'll get a couple of shots of the tower trail, and then I'll call it the end. All right, so the tower trail is right behind me. I'm going to take that back to the parking lot. As you can see, this part of the trail is completely flooded. So I'm going to save the rest of the trail for another episode. So this has been Let's Hike Sleeping Giant the Blue Trail, and I hope you enjoyed coming along with me.